there. When I heard about our next guest, I thought this is somebody that you all that are watching our unmuted shows would really enjoy getting the opportunity to meet. As we've talked about women and athletics and competition, you have responded so well to the guests that we have had. And our next guest is a competitive swimmer. Let's see, in high school was a 7-time state champion. And she now swims for the University of Kentucky. Wish we could say it was Tennessee, but she's been in Kentucky. And recently she tied for 5th in the women's 200 freestyle at the NCAA Division I Women's Championships. And that put her in the top 5 collegiate female swimmers in the nation. Her name is Riley Gaines, and we are just so excited. So, Riley, talk a little bit about how you got into competitive athletics and how long have you been swimming?
Right. Thank you for having me. I appreciate it a ton. But I come from a pretty athletic family. My dad played in the NFL. My mom played D1 softball. All my dad's brothers played sports. And so it was kind of just a given that I would do something. But it was about when I was 8 years old that I started swimming. And so it just kind of stuck and it turned into something that I began to do year round. And so there's been a ton of time and a ton of commitment put into my swimming career.
And then when did you first start to compete? Was that on a swim team or was it after you got to high school?
I started competing, every now and then, probably when I was about 10, but it wasn't until I was probably, like the 13, 14 age group when I started to get pretty good. And, I started to realize like this could be like a ticket to college, like I think I could continue to do this. And so it wasn't probably until 14 I started to get pretty serious about it.
Got it. And then talk a little bit about how those high school titles led you to a college scholarship.
Yes, ma'am. So I believe coming out of high school, I was, one of the top recruits, just given my times and where I ranked in the country and stuff. And so it was nice. I had a ton of options, which is something I wasn't used to being recruited, all these schools really wanting you. And so I really had to sit down and make a pros and cons list of each school. I considered your Tennessee school, but I passed. But I knew I did want to stay in the SEC and I knew I wanted to stay close to home. And so I chose Kentucky. I have such amazing coaches here. They would do anything for me. I would do anything for them. And they've really pushed me to my fullest potential.
And when you're preparing for competition season and getting ready for a big meet, then how much time are you in the water? How much time are you working out and training?
Right. So our college schedule is pretty strenuous. Mondays, Wednesdays, and Fridays, we practice 2.5 hours in the morning and then again 2.5 hours in the evening. Tuesdays and Thursdays and Saturdays, we practice just 2.5 hours in the evening, but we lift for an hour as well. And so, that's anywhere from 4 to 5 hours every single day you're putting into it with only getting Sundays off. And so it's a ton of time. It takes a huge toll on your body, physically and mentally, just competing and being put under this pressure. And it's a good thing. It's a good kind of pressure, but it does take a toll and there's a lot that goes into it.
So basically being a competitive swimmer is like a full-time job. And then you also have the full-time job of going to school, right?
Right. It is a lot. I'm actually going to dental school. And so, these classes and stuff leading up to that, it's not just like they're easy classes. And so, like you said, that takes a lot of time too. And so it really, the social life aspect of it is kind of minimized, but it's something that I feel like most swimmers and college athletes in general just kind of get used to and you kind of have to accept, but yeah.
Well, that takes a lot of discipline and a lot of focus. So tell me about what you specifically do to train for the 200 freestyle.
Right. So I would compare swimming to similar to running, because you have like your endurance events, like the longer stuff, like the mile, and then you have your sprint events, like the 50 free, or I guess in track, it would be like a 100-yard dash or 200 yards. But so there's different types of training. But the nice thing about swimming, the 200, is it's kind of in the middle. And so we like to call it a long sprint. And so it's nice because I get to work on endurance training, but I also have that speed aspect of it. And so practicing, we do a lot of 200 pace work. And so what that is you'll just try and hit your pace over and over again. So that way, once you get to a competition, it's almost like muscle memory.
Got it. And so when you came out of the water and realized you were fifth, you had tied for fifth with someone that has a physical advantage over you. What did you think?
Right. I touched the wall and I saw there's a 5 by my name indicating that I got fifth. But the first thing I really looked at was who won, because I was just so curious, who would win that race, because the night before Lia won the 500 free. And so more interested in my own self, I was interested in who won. And so I looked up and I also saw the number 5 by Lia's name. And so I in that moment realized, we tied. And so it was just kind of like a flood of emotions, really. I was extremely happy for the girls above me who, kind of conquered what was seemingly impossible by beating Lia. And so it was kind of just an array of emotions. But I was shocked, really. That was probably my overall consensus of how I felt.
Well, do you have your trophy yet?
No, I don't actually. So that's another crazy thing. Once I got out of the water, we kind of like go behind the podium, the awards ceremony place, and they'll distribute the trophies. And so I walked back there and the NCAA official came up to me and he just said, "Hey, that was a great swim. We only have one fifth place trophy," which I understood. I get how that works. They only account, for one fifth place winner. So I get that. But he said, "We're going to have to give the trophy to Lia. Yours will be coming in the mail. Great job." And so I feel like I was kind of taken aback, and I don't think he necessarily expected me to really question it. But I was like, okay, I understand. But can I ask why, you're choosing to give the trophy to Lia? And he responded with, "Well, we're just giving the trophies out in chronological order." And so then I was thinking, and I was like, chronological order? We just tied. I don't really know what we're being chronological about. So can you explain? And he kind of just looked at me and said, "We just have to give the trophy to Lia, but we respect and admire you so much." And so at this point, he basically admitted to me, like the NCAA is trying to save face. And I don't think they handled this properly, but I don't think they were prepared, to handle this kind of situation. And so they were faced with something they were unsure what to do with. And so at this point, I was pretty frustrated. And so I kind of looked at them and I said, "This is the women's 200-yard freestyle. And Lia won a national title last night. And I've worked every day of the past 4 years for this." Which, not saying Lia or any of the swimmers there hadn't, because it's such a big deal to get to that point. I don't think a lot of people realize, but only the top 1% of, female college athletes make it to this meet. And so that in and of itself is a huge deal, but you have to fight for every point there. And so I was kind of just frustrated with how it was handled and how they kind of addressed me in a time where, they didn't really know that was going to happen and they weren't prepared for that. And so it frustrated me for sure.
Yeah. When I'm talking to high school students, I'm beginning to hear from some of them concerns that avenues of competition are going to be closed to them. So what words of encouragement do you have for young women who are looking to compete in athletics, that want to get that college scholarship and be able to go on and compete in the NCAA? What words of encouragement do you give them?
The thing I've learned the most throughout all of this is to use your voice. Before I said anything publicly a couple weeks ago, with myself being the first or second NCAA swimmer to, kind of protest this, I have realized there are so many girls, who feel the exact same way as I do, but are told they can't say anything, or they're scared to say anything because, today's culture is just such a cancel culture, they call it, and they don't want to, risk their future in athletics or their future career, or there's so many things that can, be taken down with it. But
Yeah.
what I've realized, if we want to change, is you have to use your voice. I think we have to, let people know as a group that the majority of us female athletes, or females in general, really, are not okay with this and are not okay with, the trajectory of this and how this is going and how this could end up in a couple of years.
Well, we really appreciate hearing from you. And Riley, if people want to follow your career, are you on social media? Can they find you there?
Yes, ma'am. I have an Instagram and Twitter. I think my handle is just my, I think it's just Riley.Gaines, I believe. But yeah, for sure. Anyone can reach out with, any questions or anything like that. And I would be more than willing to talk or chat. So.
Well, we are delighted to have you with us. You've made Tennessee proud, and we're going to be cheering you on. And to everyone that joins us for Unmuted, you will find me on social media at Marsha Blackburn. Thanks so much for joining us today.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
You got it.